something is happening with Jey Uso. And I don't even know for sure what it is yet, but something is happening with Jey Uso. So we have this moment, right, where Jey Uso gets obliterated by the Vision, and Jimmy Uso comes in to save him. That's like 2-3 weeks ago. And we have this great moment where Jey says, you know, I can't do it on my own. I need you. And Jimmy says, don't worry, Uso, I'm here. And we're having the conversation on this show about how cool it is that the Usos are theoretically back together, because it's a very rare instance of a tag team that broke up. Both became single stars. One of them became a world champion, but Jimmy Uso also like upper mid-card babyface on SmackDown. And the two of them coming back together now result not just in a reunified tag team, but in a super team of two big single stars. And I thought that was the whole story, right? That we just go in and we cheer, you know, hip, hip, hooray. We get to see the Usos back together again, and we watch them fight some bad guys. And I was completely wrong about where it was going, because we have had this other story told with Jey Uso. And ever since Roman Reigns, I believe it was on the Monday Night Raw before Clash in Paris, if I'm not mistaken. The Raw before Clash in Paris, when Roman Reigns said, man, if you want my advice, I would only be looking out for my family. We need to bring the title back to us, but that's just me. And then that was kind of it, right? And we didn't realize how deep-seated that went into Jey Uso. Because the more this carries on, the more it's like, okay, Jey, who at one point was the guy like, who was Sami Zayn's friend when Sami joined the Bloodline? It was Jey Uso. Who's the guy that CM Punk has referenced as his friend? Jey Uso. Like, everybody loves Jey. Everybody loves Jimmy. And all of a sudden, Jey, and by the way, it's a very subtle change, even though everybody's yeeting with him, Jey has flipped his t-shirt. He doesn't wear a yeet t-shirt anymore. He wears a Monday Night Raw t-shirt, which is still a babyface thing to do. It's just a slight departure from the yeet. Everybody still yeets like crazy. The music still does it. It's all still good. He still comes in from the crowd. It's all good. It's just a little different. And then last week, he showed, I mean, even in the Clash in Paris Fatal 4-Way, when he was clearly showing no loyalty to CM Punk or LA Knight, I mean, I think that it was the right move. I think he would have come across like a sucker had he been sitting there trying to help other good guys win this match that he himself was trying to win. But that attitude from that Fatal 4-Way that you could justify because it's a Fatal 4-Way, every man for himself match, now carries over. And you get a scenario where even last week on Raw, the show ends with LA Knight eating a spear. And this is like finally where it's like, we are not in a match against each other. This is not an accidental thing where you pushed me into him and I got hit by this. It is straight up Jey Uso spearing LA Knight and dropping him to the ground. And Jimmy, like, not sure about what's going on anymore. So we start Raw this week, right? And we start Raw with the altercation. Jey Uso, LA Knight going back and forth. All of a sudden, Adam Pearce's priority is on subduing the chaos. All of a sudden, LA Knight doesn't want this. By the way, important to note, Jey Uso walked in wearing a Red Sox jersey. He had thrown out the first pitch, but that's to say they're in Springfield, Massachusetts. Jey Uso wearing the Red Sox jersey, not a heel turn. So we have Jey and LA Knight confronting each other. LA Knight shoves Jey as soon as he sees him, right? Then they go into Adam Pearce's office. Adam Pearce starts threatening people with taking away their salaries. Feels like an abuse of power, but regardless. He's threatening people with taking away their salaries, and he goes, we got to figure this out, and LA Knight, you need a tag team partner. You can have it, because LA Knight says, I just want to get my hands on the Vision. Don't worry about Jey then. And he says, okay, well, you can have a tag match. You got to find a partner. LA Knight says, I'm gonna get Jimmy to be my tag team partner. And Jey doesn't like that at all. So then LA Knight goes and finds Jimmy. He goes, Jimmy, I want you to be my partner. Jimmy says, I don't think that's the way to go, Oos. Not hostile, not I don't want anything to do with you, just a sort of awareness that my brother has a problem with you. Out of respect to my brother, probably not the best idea that we are a team in the main event. Jey and Jimmy meet to discuss. Before they start the conversation, Jey is on the phone, a crucial piece of the puzzle. Jey is on his cellular telephone with somebody kind of filling them in on what's going on and getting advice from them. For me, I guess technically there's 3 people it could be, but realistically there's 2 people that it makes sense. It's either Roman Reigns, which I think makes the most sense, that it would be Roman, because like he and Roman have obviously connected in a way. Coming off of SummerSlam, Jey and Roman have connected in a different type of way than they were ever connected before, and Roman has kind of acknowledged, for lack of a better term, Jey's status as a top guy, and that's not something that he's done for any other member of the Bloodline. So the idea that there would now be direct communication between Jey and Roman talking about what's going on with the family, and that maybe while Roman is away, that Jey would be that kind of center point, according to both Jey and Roman, that logically makes sense. There is then the other version of the story, where maybe Paul Heyman's larynx isn't as broken as we think it is, and Jey Uso is on the phone with Paul Heyman. I don't think he is. However, there is a version of this where everything shows itself, and then 1 week on television, Jey Uso reveals himself to be with Paul Heyman. That may be one swerve too many. We already got a swerve at WrestleMania. If we then get another swerve where Paul Heyman and Jey Uso are on the same team, and thus Paul Heyman has not only betrayed Roman Reigns, but now he has betrayed Seth Rollins as well, unless Jey joins the Vision, which feels a little far-fetched to me, because the whole story is based on family. So Paul would have to leave the Vision and join Jey, but then Roman would feel betrayed, Jimmy would feel betrayed, Seth would feel betrayed by Paul. There's a lot there, a lot of loose ends. I'm not saying those loose ends couldn't be tied up, but there is a lot there to sort of figure out, right? So I don't think it's Paul Heyman. I think it's probably Roman Reigns. There's another version of this where he's on the phone with the final boss. But I think if it were The Rock on the other end of the phone, the idea that it would just be a simple casual conversation doesn't really fit. I feel like there would be more reverence. I feel like that relationship hasn't been established. So I'm predicting Roman Reigns is on the other side of the phone. Jimmy says, who you're on the phone with. Jey says, that? Oh, no, that was nobody. Which is the most suspicious way you can ever answer that question. Who are you just talking to? Me? On the phone? Talking to? No one. Oh, okay, good. No one. So then Jey says, look, Jimmy, you can't team with LA Knight. You got to tell him, no, you can't team with LA Knight. And Jimmy takes umbrage with that. He's upset about that. Jey is now barking out orders. Last week on Raw, Jimmy said, Jey, you're starting to act like Roman Reigns. This week on Raw, Jey, with a line that cut like a knife, said, I don't see any Ula Fala around your neck. And it's just like, whoa! That's the quiet part loud. He said it. He said it. And Jey feels a certain way about that. Jimmy is upset enough that he takes Jey's order. He does the exact reverse and says, you know what, LA Knight? I am going to be your tag team partner. And LA Knight says, yeah. And so we go for it, and we have the match. It's Jimmy. It's LA Knight. It's Bronson Reed. It's Braun Breaker. Unfortunately, they're not on the same page. Jimmy Uso eats a pin from Braun Breaker. Not good news heading into WrestlePalooza. Jimmy Uso gets pinned by Braun Breaker while LA Knight is beaten up on the outside. Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker look to take out Jimmy Uso. And then who comes in for the save? Uso! It's Jey Uso. And everybody goes nuts and starts yeeting. As soon as that music is played, Jey Uso comes in, takes care of business, gets the Vision out of the ring, helps up Jimmy. LA Knight now gets in the ring. He's got a chair behind Jey Uso's back. He is ready to strike, but Jey Uso sees him. He says, I can't believe you're about to do that. LA Knight says, fine, I won't. Jey in this moment, to me, everybody's been talking about receipts. Receipt for this, receipt for that, receipt for this, receipt for that. In this moment, I think that Jey looked at this and said, you know what? I speared you last week. The idea that you would want to hit me with a chair this week, I can handle it, right? And Jey extends the olive branch. Jey extends the handshake. LA Knight gives him that handshake. LA Knight embraces him. The baby faces are on the same team. Jey Uso turns around to help his brother, and boom! BFT. Jey Uso eats the canvas. Days removed from Jimmy and Jey Uso versus Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker. We end Raw with Jey Uso catching that BFT face full of canvas and Jimmy Uso getting pinned by Bronson Reed. It doesn't look good. But is that all to say that Jey Uso was right? To me, if Jey Uso simply turns and says, you know what, LA Knight, you're officially an enemy, I think LA Knight is in the better position to be a villain than Jey Uso would be to be a villain. But I think this story goes much, much deeper than that. I think that the key points in this story are not just and maybe I'm looking too deep into it, and I've been accused of doing that before, but guess what? That's what I do. That's why Sirius came to me and said, can you do this every day? I said, of course I could do it every day. You don't think I'm thinking about it every day anyway? I think it goes deeper than LA Knight. I think that the long-term components of this story are Jey on the phone and Jimmy pointing out now 2 weeks in a row that Jey is acting like Roman Reigns. The connection that Jey and Roman have, that is the new thing. And so there's a couple of things at play here. There's a few questions. Number one, was Jey right to not trust LA Knight? Was Jey right to not trust anybody or look out for anybody outside the family? Because the minute he decides, you know what, let's be cool, LA Knight is there to strike. Or did Jey have it coming because of everything he's been doing for the last couple weeks? Depends on your perspective. I think Jey's perspective would be, I was right. I shouldn't be trusting these people. I think LA Knight's perspective is, Jey had it coming. Look at everything Jey has done for the past couple weeks. Both very, very valid. But I think the two questions that I'm left asking are, number one, over time, has the world title corrupted Jey Uso? Jey Uso was forever identified as the guy who was the babyface that got there because the fans were on his side. Can you believe it's actually going to happen? I never would have seen this coming. And boom, Jey gets it done. Why? That's why he walks out through the crowd. That's why, can he do it? We think he can do it. In a very real way, we got your back on this, Jey, and Jey is able to do it. Except then he did it. He won the world title, okay? Then he lost the world title, but now he no longer lives in a world where it's, can you imagine if Jey Uso was world heavyweight champion? He lives in a world where not only is he in that conversation, but he believes he should be world heavyweight champion. Jey, on the way to WrestleMania 40, the belief of that character was, I could be world heavyweight champion. The belief of the character now is, I should be world heavyweight champion. And there is an inherent ego and entitlement that comes with the word should as opposed to the word could. Now, do we want to go a step deeper? You tell me. Susumu, we want to go a step deeper?
Let's go.
All right. You said it. I'm doing it. Here's the step deeper that I went as I was watching last night. What if, and I said throughout the Bloodline story, that Jey was in a situation that was a trauma-filled situation, that Roman Reigns was abusive as the leader of the Bloodline. He was mentally, not physically, mentally abusive, emotionally abusive. There is a way in real life. Trauma has a strange way of showing itself. Trauma has a strange way of working itself out. How did Jey Uso finally get out from under the thumb of the Bloodline? He crashed out, he quit wrestling, and then Cody Rhodes brought him to Monday Night Raw, right? That was the story, right? That character crashed out, then he went to Monday Night Raw, and then he built himself up over the course of a year, year and a half, and became the world heavyweight champion. At what point did he actually deal with the trauma? I don't see how it could have happened. Crashing out is not dealing with the trauma at all. People will tell you it is. Those are people who crash out a lot. It's not how you deal with trauma. So, What if, in dealing with the trauma, Jey Uso has finally reached this peak in his career, a peak that maybe he thought he would never reach? And what if the way the trauma now shows itself is he is becoming everything he hated? He is becoming everything that filled him with trauma because that's the example he's got in front of him, in his family, of how people run things, in his family of how people become that champion that is the centerpiece of the company that provides for the family. The example that he has in front of him is Roman Reigns. So what if this story, this bloodline story, is not about Jey Uso one day becoming world heavyweight champion, or even Jey Uso one day becoming a tribal chief on his own terms? Because there was a time where you couldn't go anywhere without somebody saying, you know, I think the bloodline story is actually Jey Uso's story. There was a time, remember SummerSlam in, what was it, Detroit? Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns? There were many people that said Jey needs to win this match. That's what this story has all been building to. But what if the story wasn't building to Jey Uso winning the championship from Roman Reigns? What if the story was building to Jey Uso becoming Roman Reigns? Just as Roman Reigns has seen the error of his ways, what if he looks to his cousin and realizes his cousin has become the monster? That Roman did this. So much of this post-Bloodline era storytelling has been centered around the effects of what the Bloodline did when the Bloodline was in charge. What if the ultimate effect of the Bloodline was that it laid this dormant bomb inside of Jey Uso, and now that he's been the champion, and now that he's not the champion, that beast now comes out, and it could easily, in that context, result in a story where you've now got Roman Reigns, who maybe has taken his foot off the gas a little bit from that respect and maybe realized the error of his ways a little bit from that respect. Roman Reigns, maybe a year from now, has to deal with the fact that his cousin Jey is the one who's in charge of everything and the one who is inescapable.